We've got It's Not Magic Insider Threat Detection and the perfect cup of coffee with our presenter, Will Baggett. Will, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Awesome, possum. Yes, indeed, we can. All right, turning it over to you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this one. Covering a little bit of an esoteric track on the digital forensics incident response, digital forensics insider threat. I got this labeled as it's not magic. And let's see if Doug Henning does Doug Henning things. There he goes. So I'm Will Baggett, certified collection exploit engineer, certified fraud examiner, and I've recently got a promotion to a insider threat systems architect with one of the big consulting firms. So what that does, we'll find out. My career path, I was with a financial service company in Atlanta. From that, I was recruited into CIA. After many years there, moved over into NATO. And around the time COVID hit, I went to the private sector, and now I'm with a consulting firm. So I took a lot of the things I learned as a digital analyst and moving into a consultant, answering more of the questions that what if, how would we address this rather than just plugging through tickets on the commercial side. Now working as more of a specialist to help corporations address the ways that if we are coming through as, I don't want to say hackers, that's not a good word anymore, but coming through to move data without permission, how would we address, mitigate, and stop the risk before it begins? So that's where I stand right now. I'm moving up the food chain to an architect into leadership. And the difference between incident response and insider threat, I went with a picture of a dam. You don't want to have a leak with a dam. That's a bad thing, usually. So you've got your data breaches. Data comes out. It's usually triggered by something external. SolarWinds 1, 2, 3, 4 exclamation point has been a lot of our work lately. But you don't want that data coming out from the outside threat. You know, something's gone wrong. Let's mitigate the risk of the outside actor. The insider threat, you've got someone at the workstation who does something generally consciously that would enable data loss. SolarWinds versus an Edward Snowden type leak. So we'll address how to work with this. One of the common questions on both Security Plus, CEH, SysUp, difference between black box and white box penetration test. The black box, you know, there's very little data provided, just like as if we were going on the capture the flag running through other channels. What can we find? We'll simulate the outside attacker, and if we have pros versus Joes, we would have a team working to see if they can detect the penetration team to see if it's a true threat or see if it's just a simulation or a purple team. White box, all the data is provided, the credentials are provided. And as you know from your test questions, this is the more damaging attack because the insider knows where the secrets are kept and how to get them out. So this is looking at someone with access and malicious intent. One of our security questions last week for the corporation, the most common cause of a security incident is human behavior. It may not be the intern. Again, it shouldn't be the intern being blamed for the SolarWinds breach. I don't need to editorialize here. Somebody does something that causes an incident, whether it's the person who answers a cell phone call in a skiff, whether they change the settings on whatever workstation to share their data, or they install software on their laptop that inadvertently leaks data out. We had a tabletop exercise with a client for insider threat. California and GDPR, they have some different views on privacy. The colleague was allowed to use the workstation at home. The child was on the workstation. They went to gomovies.com, I'm sure we all know the websites, to watch something for free. And it began downloading flash updates, not really flash updates, loading malware on the corporate machine. That's human behavior violating that NDA, saying no one else can use your machine. They've now downloaded and installed malicious software, which could spread out to the rest of the industry or rest of the enterprise. Now, taking all that, the incident response and what makes insider threat different, When I was a whatever type of ops officer at the CIA, going through the recruitment cycle, we would have the acronym MICE. What would make someone commit espionage against their home country, against their own self-interest? And on the commercial side, we've modified that a little bit, but it comes down to this one simple catchphrase: MICE, money, ideology, conscience or compromise, ego or excitement. I don't like the way this government is handling this crisis. I'm going to let another government know what's going on. I'm going to tell Washington Post on page 2 about this classified program. But it's usually falls into one of these 4 buckets. On the commercial side, money, ideology, career, external activities. So career, I could mean, and we've seen this with a large client that we had last year. I don't need to get ahead of myself too far. For whatever reason, there was a chat about corporations and insider phishing test. Click here, log in to see your bonus you're gaining for working during COVID. And it turns out, like GoDaddy, it was a phishing test on their employees. That's going to make some people mad. External activities. Somebody has a gambling issue. Someone shows up at work with a brand new Lamborghini when you know they're being paid well below the salary cap. How did they get this ostentatious display of wealth when the salary doesn't support it? That could be a reflection something is going on. CIA did update, this is all open source. They updated their MICE to be rascals: reciprocity, authority, scarcity, commitment, consistency, career, I added that one, liking and social proof. Basically, give to get to give. Hey, the simple one. Tell me about the areas of your work that we're not allowed to talk about. That way, when we meet for coffee next week, I'll know not to target that. And people begin talking about the classified areas they're not supposed to discuss with outsiders. It's amazingly simple that how often that works. Not to get into war stories, I did that a couple of years ago. I was training. There was somebody from the former Soviet bloc. He comes up to me in the classroom: "Comrade, tell me secret, any secret. I pay you secret." We're laughing. He's on our side now. Turn the tables. Okay, I'll tell you a secret, but tell me what type of issues you're having with your country. What's your biggest concern? Help me help you. Oh, we're having problems with A, B, C, and D that country X is doing to us. And I just kind of smiled at him. He realized that the tables are turned. He's now leaking classified that he shouldn't. And this went back to the module I was teaching over there for social engineering. It's very easy. That's why so many people have a great career in social engineering as a pen test, but this does work to get people to leak data out. One of the biggest issues, and don't have really time to address this, Facebook allows you to be anybody. They have an honor system. You can go to thispersondoesn'texist.com, get a photo, go to mail.com, get a @engineer.com address like I've got, a consulting, a headhunter, and you can work for something like an IBM, something like a Kodak, or whoever. Approach the employees of your company who you know didn't get a promotion. Hey, we see you might be interested in working with this. Company X paid a 1-week bonus. We're paying a 3-week bonus for working through COVID. Why don't you come over to us? We'll make it retroactive. And people begin to say, oh yeah, I can do that. I would love to work for you for more money. That's great. Show me samples of your work and we can help get you the most money. Now you're appealing to ideology, you're appealing to ego and to money, career. People don't realize it's an outside actor soliciting information. Working with a pharmaceutical company, there's a large number of people trying to elicit through hook or by crook the formula for a COVID vaccine. And I'm editing a lot out of NDA. This is a very effective method to approach people that they wouldn't expect. A lot of the Twitterverse groans about the horrible in-mails. I'm, again, choosing my words extremely carefully, from recruiters. Hey, we'd like you to move to middle of nowhere for a 6-month 1099 contract with no benefits, far below what you're paying now. Are you interested? No. Yet they persist. The elements of insider threat, we've got the human factor. The technical collection analysis is one way we can detect it. We'll touch on that in a minute. And still the gaps in coverage. Technology emerges, technology changes, terms and service agreements change at a moment's notice. Probably a lot of us saw that Disney changed their terms and conditions, $6.99 a month. It's now $7.99 a month if you want to see Black Widow and Winter Soldier and the Falcon updates, right? It's $1 more or whatever, but you still change the terms and conditions. Evernote might only collect and sync the one folder, but with the latest update, it could sync the entire desktop. Now all the classified, or not classified, sensitive data that's on your desktop is now synced up to the outside box. We have to, in an insider threat, identify how these threats are emerging to the corporation and try to stay ahead. We have not seen the STRIDE methodology for counterforensics. Mentioning that just to get yet another cool 5-letter acronym, 6-letter acronym. It's a USGME coming out. But if you have something spoofing, changing the file names, so sensitiveFile.pdf becomes bobsoccerphotos.jpg, and they try to get it through the filter, digital loss prevention, DLP software may or may not catch that. So files being renamed in mass, people elevating privilege, just like with this recent sudo flaw that was discovered where you can elevate a regular Linux account into a sudo account. These things do happen on the corporate network, but not as often as the general inadvertent. And I say general, most people, especially in the world of COVID, don't want to do something to harm their employer. A robust insider threat team, again, coming from the, I hate to say it, road cowboy, go out, give me a laptop, something to do, I'll fly out, let you know what I've done, and come back operating independently. Again, choosing my words carefully, this is a new world for me, having to work with teams of human resources, security, and legal. But for the insider threat team, this is who we need, because all three can provide us the information to help build that threat model. We don't go to VirusTotal for insider threat. These are our sources for the recent updates. Generally, your mileage may vary. The buckets of users that we would want to monitor, that's a horrible, InfoSec Sherpa would not be happy with my classification of buckets of users, but whether it's a new hire, a new employee, contractor gives 2 weeks notice. I had a contractor give me 5-minute notice back in the day. That was a good time. If someone has a known performance issue, the performance drops from being a rock star to absolutely bare minimum, checking their pulse to see if they're still with us. It could be somebody who's a network admin, SOC analyst, DFID analyst, who's going to have a higher level of scrutiny. And given the level of access these three jobs have, hate to say it, I do agree with it. Lifestyle concerns, again, are they going to Tahiti in their new Lamborghini and parking in the valet lot at the airport when they're only making part-time $9 an hour? The other, if there's impending layoffs, the new corporate term, managed attrition, slashed bonuses, jelly of the month club, if you know these adverse actions are going to happen and morale is questionable, human resources, talent management may want to put those names on a list to be added for enhanced monitoring to see if additional actions are taken by these employees. Deleting mass numbers of files, well, generally everything's recoverable. Emailing large numbers of files out, actively searching for a job on the corporate network, trying to gain access to files they shouldn't. The general malicious behaviors can be monitored and generally watched and caught beforehand. As a fraud examiner, I picked that up while studying for other exams. It was just, in this world, why not pick all the certs up you can if you can? The fraud triangle, not my concept, it's from the American Association of Fraud Examiners. If you have the opportunity to steal, and the rationalization, well, I didn't get my promotion, I know Mary got it, she didn't deserve it, and I'm having financial issues at home, going through a divorce, taxes have gone up, my radiator blew on my car. People can self-justify why it's okay to steal money from the corporation. And now with big data, you can see the smaller leaks in a bigger picture. A granular example, way back there was a branch manager who came into work. This is before I came to the Intel community. Came in, Georgia Bureau of Investigation was there, FBI was there, Bank Security was there, and they were looking for the branch manager, and he wasn't there. They can't find him. Every time he would get a bundle of money from the Fed Reserve, he was always $100 bill short. He'd do the shortage list, tell the Fed you're short $100. You can do that exactly once in your career, steal $100, and nobody's going to think twice. But if it happens week after week after week, employer after employer after employer, and you're the only person, now the big data says it's not the Fed Reserve shorting the $100 stacks, it's you. And that's how we're using big data to triangulate to see where the fraud's coming in. Getting granular, repeated violations of DLP, digital loss prevention programs, McAfee or Office 365. They're trying to access plans and intents, targeted files for next year's sales bonuses, for the contract with Bob's Widget Company. Bob does everything. Calling the help desk to say, I really need access to this SharePoint folder. I don't have it, but it would help me in my job. Noting they don't have access to these files, but they persist to look for the one help desk person to say yes. That would be added to the watch list. Access violations, same thing. If they repeatedly try to go to Dropbox, Slack, and there are dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of chat programs where they can exfil data out underneath the corporate network. If they're going for more of the Intel side, going for the need to know versus need to know, the need to know bin says, here's your daily job duties versus I want to know what these other people are doing because that sounds a lot cooler. Or is someone paying you to gain access to that? All of these data points can be assembled and given a user a score for their risk behavior. What I wanted here was a good slide of a kid squeezing Play-Doh. The Play-Doh being the data, and when you squeeze it to exfil the data, it can only go out in so many ways. It's either going out through USB, SD card, Bluetooth. Bluetooth connections are still generally wide open. Email's a little bit tougher. Printing, I mean, who prints anymore? The chat and shadow IT services, there are clients who would enable Blue Jeans or Zoom or Slack when the corporation doesn't allow it to accomplish tasks more efficiently. What we found with Slack at the time being a free service, someone could install it, go to the web browser, create channels connected to Google Drive, exfil the data, delete the channel, and at that time, the channel was not recoverable, nor the data that went through there. If you had a paid version of Slack, that was recoverable, but at the time, that was free. So perfect if you're doing CoveCom data exfil for a 3-letter agency, horrible if you have a corporation you're trying to keep solvent during a pandemic. Sync services, two that are of great concern are both Google, of course, and Apple. Big surprise. You're not aware on the network that the data on my laptop is being synced to the cloud and then resynced out, whether it's Amazon, Apple, or Google, to the multiple drives the other person may have. So they might have just innocently saved a text document from A to B in their iMessage, and now that syncs out, you've lost the data for the sensitive document. How are you going to address that? Because both Apple and Google do have the ability with Apple data recovery. I don't have the slide deck for that here. And Google Takeout, you can recover everything, every cringy email, text, web history ever done while you're logged into Google is recoverable. It's non-reputable, if, is that a word? So if law enforcement, legal needed to get an accurate copy, that would still be something the end user can't tamper with. So if a malicious user emails a document to themselves and we log on and say, we want to watch you delete that file from your Gmail, dirty secret is it's still there on Google Drive. Once leave the corporation, they can still recover the document, even though we had them delete it in front of us, human resources and security. The data is still there. So sync services are an emerging threat to the corporation, and we have to learn how to mitigate this risk. The accidental data exfil, if you've seen my other slide for Broken Arrow for assisting digital abuse victims, this is the same concept, but on the corporate side. Facebook Messenger stores the granular chats between A and B, B to A, with not just they texted each other, here's the full body of the text, here's all the documents, and all the phone calls made on the phone. There was a commander of some country, and they wanted their officers to report in when they arrived in hostile lands, whatever, through Facebook Messenger, which then harvested all the gray, sensitive, but unclassified data from their phones is now stored by Facebook. This is horrible for a corporation. This is great if you need to prove, A sent me these abusive text messages and here's the authoritative file saying this happened. But for this bowl of rice, I hate that term, sorry. For this talk, having Facebook Messenger monitor everything that occurs on a work phone, that's a major source of data loss that's going to have to be addressed by us collectively in the future. This screen sets up the next one. Log on warning. Well, just click on this. It's the spouse install. Okay. We just click through it. But this legal consent page says, here's the back half the user doesn't see. We can log on. We can monitor your network traffic, log on dates and times, badge access from security, everything done in O365, your team chat, files open, changed, modified. If you have the Druva endpoint agent, we can get your laptop name, connect to that laptop, look in your folders remotely surreptitiously to see what you have staged to exfil. And with McAfee DLP, you can see the USB, what was copied to and from the USB, the serial number, which is pretty cool. You can see how many times that USB was plugged in throughout the corporation. Conversely, if you're doing a pen test, drop a USB on the sensitive site, note the serial number of the USB, then you can see how many other users plugged in that USB and didn't report it. A couple of different uses for this, but again, McAfee, you can see all the data documents printed and what was saved to the clipboard. The downside, print, I should have had the Mr. Incredible meme here. Print means print. So it's not just print to the HP printer, it's print to PDF and store in SharePoint. So until you tune out your alerts, every time someone prints to PDF and stores in SharePoint, which is good behavior, you're going to get an alert they did something risky. Another issue in 2021, as I was joking with one of the mods before this, it still feels like March 2020. When you print with an HP, specifically, unless you uncheck the box, and I don't trust it, the data of what you printed, the verbiage, all goes to HP for marketing analysis. I'm not really cool with that. I just want a printer to print. I don't want to give all my tax data to HP just because I bought a $40 printer from Walmart. That's not part of the deal. This deal is getting worse as it goes on. So we take all this data, realize this is a shorter talk, we have coffee to discuss. We start to look for the anomalies. So we look for the behavior issues. So we've got, this is Magnet Axiom. We've got 17,000 artifacts within the cloud, but only 2 data tables, a PowerPoint, and 2 Word docs. Those are the anomalies. What was sent out from A to B? Who sent this out and why did it go out over Slack when Slack isn't authorized? Knowing who you're looking at, why you're looking at, and zeroing in on the threat versus trying to figure out what the heck SolarWinds did to your network, it's a little bit different. One of the countermeasures, honey files. Just like a honeypot for the outside attacker, but it's a interesting file, super interesting company file on the website, proposed raises, promotion list, grievance list. We've used that pen testing at NATO. We had a grievance list, and actually, surprisingly, the COTAR for the contract plugged in that file to see, because he was concerned about his job, knowing we're training on social engineering, whatever. This is one option. See who actually accesses these sensitive files and possibly put them on a watch list. I'll tell my kids this. I have they're now in their junior year of college, but this is one of the phrases: can versus should. And I'm tossing this caveat into the discussion. Just because you can provide data, just because as a corporation you can do something, should you? One manager at a previous life wanted to know every time one of his operators opened their email, who he sent the email to, what he did after the email. That was out of scope. It was just they received it, they responded to you. What they do afterwards, they have a degree of privacy. And as an individual operator, whether you're the analyst, consultant, architect, or in leadership, yeah, we could put behavior analytics to determine terms of they're happy with the corporation, they're angry, and put the keywords to indicate employee behavior and how they feel. Do you really want to go that road? To me, that's a bridge too far. That's something I'm not comfortable. I would push back on it. I have pushed back in the past. And not to preach, if we don't say this is too much, who will? The traditional risk mitigation principles: control your access, the need to know, and separation of roles. That applies to accounting, that applies to InfoSec. Just tossing that out here for something to consider of what access do they really have? Do they really need this access? I'm starting to run up against the wall here. Documentation. When you interview someone, document it. That's going to be a part of the insider threat role. You have to know why the person is of interest. As you find something interesting, document, whether it's in a JIRA ticket, whether it's in SRS, whatever help desk methodology your SOC is using. Make sure you document this. If you find something sensitive, whether it's eyes only Coca-Cola original formula, child pornography, whatever sensitive may be in your world, have an SOP for it. How am I going to handle this before we do this investigation? Never assume. That comes with a war story, short one. We were doing one insider threat where millions of dollars had been funneled out of the corporation. Becky Williams on Slack channel, fictitious name, and Rebecca Jones show up in the Slack channel later. We were treating these as two separate entities, separate names, separate user ID. When we were talking with the client, oh, that's them. They went through a divorce and changed your name to be more professional. That changed the world for the way we were treating the investigation. And now had one prime suspect instead of two. Once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, three times, if they repeatedly go back to that honey file looking for more and more data. Those of you who know. Those who don't, cable traffic is the official documented record of the intelligence community, starting with State Department going back to 1947. WikiLeaks has a lot of this out there. The chief of stations, management, leadership, those are two different things. Would say if it ain't in cable traffic, it ain't. You are promised this benefit for your permanent move to this country. If you didn't get it in cable traffic, no one has to honor it. Much like acceptance offers for new jobs. If it's not written, if it ain't documented, it ain't. Same with dealing with HR, legal, and security. If you don't document that one file, the anomaly that you've seen in whatever forensic tool you're using, whether it's incident response or insider threat, if you don't document it when you come across a file, good luck remembering that tomorrow after another 1,000 files you've sorted through. Document it when you see it. This one means nothing. I just like it. 2 is 1, 1 is none. If you're going to look through something forensically, use a second toolkit to validate your results and see what other data is there. If it ever goes to court, the defense is going to ask, what additional steps did you use to validate your findings? Some corporations only want to spend the money to have one toolkit. I don't feel comfortable working for those because my reputation, my name, my freedom in court is on the line saying, I feel good with this versus I've validated it with multiple tools. All right, the system worked. We found an insider threat. They're acting kind of sus. And we're going to have a meeting, right? Not yet. I had the 6 eyes rule when we deploy with whatever widget that's very sterile, sorry. Before we would leave, I would take my widget that I was going to deploy, meet with a colleague, and then somebody who worked alongside us, but not in our group, to show them, train them, here's what we're doing, here's how we're going to do it, and here's how it works. This validated my understanding, their understanding of the thing, and that we had everything required before deployment. And I said that in this environment for this. Before we would go to leadership, human resources, security, this is me, but I strongly encourage the listenership here to do the same. Take the findings for people who are cleared to see the same bucket of results, present it to them, let them look through it. Because if you've made a mistake, it could result in someone's termination, adverse career actions of someone working with the corporation. I would want someone to take the same duty of care for my career as I will for theirs, because if we make a mistake, that could be their job and the chain of events afterwards because I made a mistake. I don't want to do that. I want to do the right thing the first time. We present the documented findings to leadership. There's a meeting. We present what we found. We have the enumerated files. 200 files from this SharePoint were sent to their personal Gmail account after they accepted this job offer from outside vendor. After they accepted the file, after they accepted the result, large numbers of files went out. This is malicious. They're leaking company property and intellectual property to be used by the competition. At this point, this is a hard thing on the commercial side. I've done my job. I've provided all this data to leadership and it's on to them. Some countries, well, that's on them.
Just to break in 15 minutes for you.
Okay. That's on them. We've done our part legally as consultants. We've shown them what's happened. Some people don't, some management roles don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, well, they work on it so they can take it home. All right, well, that's your finding. I've done my job as an insider threat analyst. Close the case and move on to the next one. Other times it would be, we want you to meet with security leadership, show us what you found, or stop working altogether. Law enforcement is coming in and be prepared to meet with them. But the world is gray. Clear and present danger. What might be a red flag termination event for some corporations might be a coaching letter for others, and then yet another one, it might be a non-event. It all depends on the corporate culture, the sensitivity of the data, numerous other factors, but be prepared. What you have found, once you submit your report, you've addressed the breach, you've said this could be a problem for the company, and move on. One last thought before we roll to coffee. The intelligence community, CIA, had a mandated maximum tour length for people doing analysis of sensitive materials, whether it's terrorist executions, other horrific things. We don't need to open that on a Sunday night. But they were allowed a year to 2 years maximum with a mandated visit to a counselor at the end of every week for the horrific things they were seeing and reporting on. The old Jeff Foxworthy joke. No one ever stops by the lost luggage counter and says, hey, everything's good here. No one comes through the insider threat team and says, hey, everything's cool. You guys have a great day. We're always dealing with people having their worst decisions professionally at the worst time. It's okay to rotate out. My current role is in a architect system building position instead of a boots on the ground investigatory role. I'm actually okay with that because you don't need to see horrific things day in and day out. It's not good for you mentally. The best thing you can do for other people is to take care of yourself first. This is a fun role. I absolutely enjoy doing this type of work, but rotate in, rotate out. The people who make careers of counterintelligence, the careers of insider threat, the child crimes task force, you've got to step away for the sake of yourself. So the too long didn't read version, identify the key dates and scope prior to the investigation, mind the gaps in collection, think how else could this data go out? How are they staging it? How are they exfilling it? Document the events when they happen and rotate out on a regular basis. You can always come back in, The core principles are there. Technology is going to change, but the same concepts of how is this person getting data out of the corporation? How are they breaching corporate security? The core concepts will be there. Take care of yourself first. Totally switching hats from that. One good cup of coffee in 3 minutes or less. I didn't drink coffee at all until my twins were born. And then I started work at CIA, and roughly right after that, I'm dating myself, 9/11 hit, and we had some pretty long shifts in response to the terrorist attack. Coffee became my lifeblood. Dark roast is good. Light roast has more caffeine. So the steps are fairly simple. We've got 10 minutes left here. This will be short. There was a gentleman who worked Latin and South America. One of his side hobbies, he was a coffee taster. His taste buds were insured by Lloyd's of London for several $1 million. We had a meeting with him in a facility. He had just come back from Colombia, and he says, I've just returned from I've just returned from Colombia, full stop. I've made some coffee from Colombia. Would you like some? Well, of course, if you just flew it back. Well, those were two different senses. That's one of the first examples of the weasel world of CIA that I got into. It was a superb cup of coffee. And then the reveal was it was Walmart Sam's Blend Colombian coffee, the cheapest of the cheap coffee, pre-ground. It was $2 for 16 ounces back then. He said the most important thing is to clean your equipment. If you don't clean the equipment properly before you grind the beans, have your water, and take care of the rest of the process, it doesn't matter. Here's kicking the podium like if I was training military. This is the key right here. Like, really, Will? This is it? Yeah, this is it. Even my college son swills coffee, loves coffee. He still has this in his kitchen in New Mexico because Dawn removes oils and bacteria from the coffee equipment. Other detergents only remove bacteria. That's great. You don't want salmonella, but you're still going to have that oil buildup from all the previous cups of coffee on the grinder, on the coffee pot. Everywhere that your coffee touches, that oil is going to build up and just give that nasty, that exact taste, that just stale taste. And you want to get unscented Dawn for clean equipment. Why? Because if you have soap, floral, bouquet flavored coffee, nobody wants to know that you cleaned your coffee pot with Dawn's spring scent. Nobody wants that. Ralphie might. I don't. We're going to use a Aeropress mechanism. We want to use finely ground beans. Light roast has more caffeine than a dark roast. The large grind means more water seeps through the filter. More water that seeps through the filter means you're going to have weak coffee. Weak coffee means you're probably going to sleep. And if you're asleep on the job, that's probably not a desirable behavior. Magnolia Coffee sells, God bless Dennis Leary, they sell coffee flavored coffee. They also sell some other blends. And my cup today is local TGK coffee from tgkcoffee.com. They don't ship yet. It's just a local boutique, but that's what I've got. You want to get your coffee heated up to 175 degrees Fahrenheit, 80 degrees Celsius. If you really want iced coffee, 0 degrees Kelvin. Might be a little bit cold at that point, but it will warm up. You don't want boiling. Boiling is too hot. So at the desk, get a thermometer, make your best guess. This is an Aeropress. You have the plunger. The mechanism, we have a couple of steps through this. I don't work for Aeropress. I don't sell Aeropress. This is the method my son taught me. I liked it better than the other methods because the waste compared to a K-cup is much less. Oh, I wish we had live demos for a live conference. Basically, put the filter in the bottom, wet it, screw the top in, make sure it's a good seal. Otherwise, you're going to have a leak. You don't want a coffee leak, just like you don't want a data leak. you're going to put 16 grams for hot coffee of grounds above the filter, 17.5 for cold. They found that the coffee was weaker using 16 grams, 17.5 or higher, gave a stronger cup of coffee when you're doing cold brew. You want to shake the Aeropress to get it level. Add it to the one line and the cylinder that's about 75 milliliters of water. The press, this is brilliant design. The T shape is enough that you can stir the coffee, agitate the coffee, stir, shake, or press. We're going to shake or we're going to stir it. That shape, that depth is just enough. It's not going to disturb the coffee filter. After 10 seconds of stirring for espresso or a minute for cold brew, take the plunger and in a vertical method, this is key because if you come in at an angle and have a slick surface, your coffee cup is going to shoot to the side and you're going to have a coffee leak, which is worse than a data breach because now your entire workstation smells like coffee and it might screw up your laptop. This is key, 90 degrees straight down, smooth plunge. Using the Aeropress, there's a twist where you can do the inverted method where the paper filter is at the top, you have the paper filter last, the coffee sitting on the rubber plunger, you agitate it, stir it for a minute, flip it over the sink if you have that luxury, and then slowly press it through. So you have a nice strong cup of coffee. This works as well for cold brew. And these, again, these slides are available. Espresso style, drink it as it is. American coffee, add 8 ounces of water to the mug to weaken it. A latte, just, yeah, I don't do that. Cold brew, 8 ounces per. If you've got a heavy client load or you have teenage twins or newborn twins, that's when you ramp up to the 4, 5, 6 shots of cold brew so you can stay awake for the diaper changing. Again, the slides will be available. The best cup of coffee is one that somebody makes for you. Be grateful for the small things from Kofi Barista. If you want a really good cup of coffee, make 2 and share 1. Because other people might bring you a really bad cup of coffee and you're going to have to act like you like it. And I can't fake it. My closing thought, long-term success is like good coffee. You skip a step, slack on the process, let somebody else do the grind for you, and the results won't satisfy you. You won't get the outcome you want. Do the grind, follow the process, stick to the process, and you'll get great results. And with that, the slides will be available. Questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you. Well, let me just go ahead and check the channel real quick for you. I did see one earlier back in the defer part of things. Sorry, not defer. Anticipating the next talk already. Here it is. What do you think are the best ways for companies to prevent people self-justifying why it's okay to steal money from a corporation? Those kind of things from happening.
Accounting oversight, the fraud prevention rules of having 2 people, one person might handle the deposit, the other person counts the money that goes on the deposit, the separation of duties. With the large corporation I'm in now, all of the travel accounting is done through the corporate credit card with all receipts required, period. It's a pain, but it's going to stop that level of fraud. For the smaller ones, for the pink collar fraud, again, separation of duties are just story after story of the single threaded bookkeeper, accountant, handles the money from the soccer club, handles the money from the collection plate. They're able to siphon the cash off before it's accounted for because there's not a second set of eyes.
All right, 2-person controls. Excellent. It looks like everyone else is mostly geeking out about their coffee preferences at the moment, so you've certainly sparked a conversation over here. Oh, here we go. How do you ensure the team that's looking for the insiders are not the insider threat themselves? Who watches the watcher?
That was a philosophical question we had at the client site. They added me to the ACLs for the sensitive data, and over the other side of the SCIF, not SCIF, I'm sorry, Old Life. other side of the sock, it was, who's Will Baggett? Why does he have access to this? I just, hey guys, I'm here on the team now. But you have random auditing and sampling of what they're doing. And I found it generally, I'm weasel words, but generally self-polices because we see the tools, we know the access, we know that everything is being logged. We're not going to make those steps to do something malicious because A, losing a job in a pandemic, and B, it's the wrong thing to do. But A, you don't want to be unemployed in a pandemic. You know that everything is logged. So what I've seen in my experience of people working digital forensics, insider threat, or digital forensics in general, the corporate laptop is the corporate laptop, the corporate phone is the corporate phone, and never the two shall mix because we know the oversight that's on us.
All
Like my
right,
friends, on a bet at these hacker conferences, besides they're great people, I don't know what's going to come across Twitter. I don't know if you're on Twitter, haha. But I don't want anything from Twitter on the corporate phone that could cause me to lose a job just because somebody sent out something sensitive.
yes, indeed. All right, so looks like we're out of time here. Thank you very much for
He
your
is
contributions to
fantastic.
PancakesCon today. Glad to have you.